In body cam footage released today, in just 6 seconds, police say 18-year-old Ryan Hinton aims his gun at officers.
He's got to go!
Police shoot and kill him. Today on MLK Drive, a deputy is working traffic control for UC graduation when a driver crashes into him. Person who hit the deputy, the father of the person who was shot yesterday?
Yes.
Ryan Hinton's father, 38-year-old Rodney Hinton, is charged with aggravated murder in the deputy's death.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Yoda. No, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
So, as the popular saying goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. But then there's also another saying that if you plan on getting revenge, dig a grave for the one you are going after, but don't forget to dig one for yourself. I think that these two sayings seem to be clearly outlining today's true crime case, which involves Rodney Hinton. The footage you saw from the beginning is a footage from a police camera that shows the final moments of the son of Rodney Hinton being chased down by police, and at a point in the chase, him allegedly, according to police testimony, drawing a weapon on them, and the police who were in pursuit of him also in turn trying to disarm him by firing on him, which turned fatal. Now, at this point in time, Rodney Hinton's son passed, and Rodney Hinton had to go to the police station with his family to view the footage as part of the due process of the whole thing that had happened. His son had actually allegedly been driving a stolen car with some other perpetrators or suspects, if I should put it that way. At this point in time, it didn't seem like any other thing was going to happen. The loss of the son and the shooting incident was bad enough, and it looked like it was going to be one of such typical cases as happens within the context of that particular case at hand. But little did the people know what was coming next, because it turns out that when this transpired, Rodney Hinton, together with his family at the police station, were not happy. But Rodney Hinton allegedly was so agitated and upset, he couldn't even drive his own car out of the police station. So his family had to get him to their home by having him carpool with them. So he left his car at the parking lot of the police station. Now, fast forward, this guy comes back to the police station to pick his car. And one would have felt that, okay, maybe he has found himself and that is it. But little did they know that he was still upset and very agitated after viewing the video of his son being taken down by the police in that fatal manner. And when he got into his car, he just drove from the police station towards a university. And at a point in time, he got to an intersection and he appeared to stop briefly before driving at top speed, allegedly, through the intersection, where another police officer was actually standing and attending to traffic. It is been alleged that Rodney Hinton drove his car through this police officer, who is called Deputy Henderson, and he struck him, and that also turned fatal. And it began to look like a possible case of an eye for an eye. So this is the case as it is now. I'm sure you may be familiar with it if you are active on social media. But just in case you are not familiar, I've given you the fundamental summary. But then, this is where everything started building from. Yeah, sounds crazy, because even the introduction of the case in itself has led to 2 lives being cost. One is an 18-year-old boy who is the son of the now accused cop killer, Rodney L. Hinton. And the second victim is Deputy Henderson, who had actually served at the sheriff's office and had actually gone on retirement, and he was just doing volunteering duties. And I need to voice this out that per the report so far, the Deputy Henderson, who was unalived by the act of Rodney L. Hinton's car hitting him, was actually not linked to the shooting incident that took the life of Rodney Hinton's son. So there was no connection there. And it begs the question that then why would he target him? But that question in itself begs other questions. And that is what this video is going to break down, because this case started as a case of a police pursuit of some teenagers who had apparently stolen a car. That story in itself is now changing. Then it went on to what Rodney L. Hinton allegedly did and the suspected reason for which he is being accused of doing that thing, which is also sort of being challenged on other grounds. And then the racial element of it, because I need to mention that the victim of Rodney Hinton's driving incident, who is the Deputy Henderson, is a white guy, and Rodney L. Hinton, as you know, is a black guy. So racial sentiment comes in, just like the case of Carmelo Anthony. And this is a bit of a twist, because not only has a white person lost his life at the hands of a black person, but in this case, the black person is alleged to have done that as retaliation for him losing his son, who is also a black boy or a black male, to a shooting incident of some white cops, which brings in something around George Floyd. And it looks like these kind of things are not dying out anytime soon in the USA. But I digress a bit. Let me take it one by one and add my food of thought, and you can add yours as well in the comment section. First of all, before I break it down, RIP to the son of Rodney L. Hinton. He is called Ryan Hinton, 18-year-old teenager who was unfortunately taken down like that. And then RIP also to the Deputy Henderson. My hearts and condolences goes to their families. Now to the breakdown. First of all, let's start with the police video. The police footage, which shows the hot chase of Ryan Hinton, that's Rodney L. Hinton's son. Now, according to the initial reports that came out, the police are saying, the cops who are actually in pursuit of these guys are saying that Ryan Hinton drew a weapon on them. He didn't fire, but it looked like he was going to, so they feared for their lives and then they let off some shots. And by so doing, he was hit apparently in the arm and also in the chest, and it turned fatal. But other reports coming in are also disputing this and saying that, one, in some cases they are saying that no weapon was even found at the scene to confirm that Ryan Hinton actually drew a weapon on the police. So they are suspecting the police were trigger happy. Another one is also saying that the footage in itself is blurry. I think from one of the press conferences given by the police after the shooting, I think one of them is alleged to have said that thing, that part of the footage which would have confirmed that Ryan Hinton actually drew a weapon is blurry. So if that is the case, then it leaves a question mark as to whether or not Ryan Hinton actually drew a weapon. Now, it's important we appreciate this particular aspect of the analysis because it sets the tone when we get to what Rodney L. Hinton is also accused of doing. So, if that reportage was accurate, then it means that it can't be actually confirmed that Ryan Hinton drew a weapon on the police. And dare I say that if the footage can't confirm that, then the thing becomes a bit questionable, because how do they prove that shooting was valid or legit? In the sense that Ryan Hinton could have actually had a weapon on him, but that does not warrant him being gunned down like that, because he would have had to have played out an action with that weapon which police officers would have genuinely feared for their lives, and then they would want to take him down the way they did. But in this case, they don't have a footage to prove same. So on what grounds was he gunned down? And that begins to beg the question if the police are telling the truth or not. Which then takes us to Ryan Hinton's actions. Clearly, as a father, he was broken when he watched the footage of how his son lost his life. And I think I need to bring this out also, that per all my research, Rodney L. Hinton has no criminal record. This guy has a clean sheet. So it's not like this guy is some criminal mastermind or an unstable person. He has a clean record. And for somebody to hold such a clean record is not to be taken for granted. It means that this person most likely has his things together and he's doing his best. And if you look at what happened on the day he went to watch the footage of his son's passing at a police station with his family, you could see that clearly Rodney Hinton was just broken. Because according to the family, he was agitated and he was upset. As rightly so. And I'm sure any father who has a connection with his kids watching this would appreciate what he was likely going through. To the point he even left his car and the family drove him home in their car. But then he had to come back for his car. And I think that is where everything went crazy. Now, the police or prosecutors are going with the narrative that Rodney L. Hinton deliberately drove his car through Deputy Henderson as a way of avenging his son. I think that is a possibility. I'm not going to discount that. We are just doing an analysis and I'm no expert. But this is just my 2 cents. I think that is a possibility. It could actually be true. But then they would have to prove it. Because if they can't prove it, what if Rodney Hinton is actually trying to peddle something along the lines of mechanical fault? Because in my research, I haven't also seen anything that says that he told the police he was happy he did it or he did it deliberately. I haven't even heard him say anything that confirms what the prosecution is trying to put out. So I think the prosecution will have to prove something. But in case they are able to prove it, that it was deliberate, it brings us to the next phase of the analysis where other defenses may come up, where his lawyer is already trying to push that narrative of mental health. And truly, people are also trying to expand it on social media, because linking it back to the police cam footage of his son's passing, if he watched the footage and he felt that the police executed his son, how do you think he'll feel? Especially if that part of the footage which would have confirmed to him that his son pulled a weapon on the police is actually blurry, and he ends up feeling that his son was taken from him by trigger-happy police officers. How do you think that guy's mental health would be? Then it begins to hold some water if the footage was blurry. As it stands now, it looks like, per the charges being leveled against him, the murder charges, if found guilty or if convicted, it's likely he may be going in for life and maybe even face the death sentence. But with defenses like this, he might even beat the case, or he may have a lesser sentence. I don't know. He may have a lesser sentence. Because people are talking about the fact that if the police did the wrong thing, then they may have set him off the chain. That is also a possibility. I'm not so familiar about how the laws of the US apply in things like this, whether it will even be linked to something around provocation, and if so, whether there's a time limit or a deadline or a time window within which the cause and effect leads to a crime and provocation may be used as a defense. I don't know. But it looks like there are several question marks around this, because I think that once the police body cam footage turns out not to be sufficient to prove that Rodney Hinton's son, Ryan Hinton, actually pulled a weapon on the police, then the police are going to be in for a lot of heat. Because don't forget there's the other angle too, where even if Rodney Hinton is found to have deliberately done that, and even the footage is able to confirm his son had a weapon, there's the bit about his mental state after seeing his son pass on like that. All those things come into the loop. And not to forget the bit that the racial element is also in there. And for that one, I think that I'll go deeper a bit. My research uncovered content where people are talking about the fact that it was high time somebody had to retaliate against the police and take one of their own. That is trying to justify an eye for an eye. Now, I have a lot of problems with that type of analysis. The first being that in this particular case, assuming we are even considering an eye for an eye as a rule to go by, at least there should be some ground rules. Go for the person who took an eye and take his eye. But in this particular case, the county special deputy, Larry Henderson, who was run down by Rodney Hinton's vehicle and also passed on, was not in any way connected to the passing of his son. He wasn't connected to that shooting incident. So why are you going to use him as the point of vengeance? Unless, of course, the beef is not particularly with the police that were particularly involved in the shooting, but rather the police as a whole. In which case, you begin to see how County Special Deputy Larry Henderson would look like an attractive victim in that circumstance. I don't condone an eye for an eye, but people are peddling this and even taking it further and talking about the fact that if you look at what has been done to George Floyd and several other victims of police brutality, it was high time that some people would also want to now get after the police and make them feel the pain. Because at a point in time when the oppression is consistent, rampant, and severe, and seems to be allowed to just pass on, the victims or the category of people who are usually the victims would also start fighting back. And thus, it justifies what Rodney Hinton did, allegedly as retaliation for the shooting death of his son at the hands of the police. I don't agree with that. I agree with his pain, I agree with everything he's going through, but I don't agree he has to go there and do that. And even at worst, do it to somebody who is not even connected to the whole thing. I don't condone to that. Yeah, I don't condone to that. But as if all this is not bad enough, Rodney Hinton has also filed a lawsuit as of just 2 days ago. And in that lawsuit, he is actually claiming that the police did a lot of things against him when they picked him up. First of all, he alleges that he was physically assaulted by the police when they took him into custody on the 2nd of May. And I wouldn't doubt that so much, because when you watch the footage, I'm sure you are seeing it, you will see that he looked beaten when he showed up for his court hearing. And the suit also indicates that the police were there in multiple numbers at the court hearing and created an atmosphere of fear, surveillance, and intimidation. Obviously, Rodney Hinton has also pleaded not guilty to the 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of murder, and 2 counts of felonious assault that is seeking to be leveled against him. He is also now suing the police for unlawful imprisonment, and he is alleging that he was actually detained unlawfully without due process and without a valid conviction, as well as also suing for conspiracy to deprive his rights, intimidation, and excessive force, emotional distress, and breach of oath of office. In his suit, he is seeking $5 million in compensatory damages and then a whopping $20 million in punitive damages. As it stands now, the state, the Cincinnati Police Department, and the Hamilton County Sheriff are the named defendants of Rodney L. Hinton's suit. When they were contacted for their feedback, the sheriff's office said that they don't have any comment. Now, this is where this case has got into at the moment. And per what I see, I believe it's only going to get bigger as we go forward. Because Rodney Hinton has also pleaded not guilty, so they are going to fight the case. And I foresee the racial tensions expanding in here. This is what I advise. First of all, I think that the investigation should be thorough. It shouldn't just be based on proving whether Rodney Hinton intentionally unalived Deputy Henderson by driving through him as a form of retaliation for the loss of his son. It should start from the first thing that triggered this whole thing, the shooting incident of his son. And there should be an independent inquiry into it to be sure that everything as reported by the police who were caught in the middle of that shooting is actually true. Because there is even another counter reportage that the car, which was alleged to have been stolen by Rodney Hinton's son and his friends, Ryan Hinton, is actually not a stolen vehicle, but rather a repoed vehicle. So there are several things out there, and I think that the investigation should start from that and work its way up through all the other chapters of this case. It is very unfortunate when things like this start happening. And I am not being quick to judge Rodney L. Hinton because, as the courts and the laws always say, he's innocent until proven guilty. So for those of you who are judging him, I think that you need to tread cautiously because, according to the eyes of the law, he's innocent until proven guilty. I'm following this case and I'll bring you updates as and when they are due. But let me know in the comment section which of these parts of the case upsets you, hurts you, or you agree with. Let's have a conversation on this. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there.